Good morning, everybody. We're almost there. We almost finished today, the last weekend of this level 2 of the Mingjie seminar. Thank you for joining us, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. I'm so excited. I learned so much just the Shagucao whole day, and I already making all this progress for writing down my notes. And I'm very happy that I relearned all these single herbs and how they can work together. And I'm so excited to learn all these things about liver, how to work with liver, and with all this information. Of apparently, Lao Shi has all the single herbs that who is can working together with all the other herb how to work together. So as far as I learned yesterday with all these herbs, the first thing I feel like is 夏菇草 can combine with others. So the 对药 basically is very important. So I don't you remember if I don't remember if all of you taking the class or the exam for the California ones, because we do have to memorize all the 对药. So some of the 对药 looks beautiful because the first thing I thought about the 夏菇草 is 菊花. So then I wrote it down the 菊花, and 老师 says the 夏菇草 and 菊花 together it will be a good pairing too. So 老师 is teaching us how to do that. So if you have any favorite herb of yours, and then try it to see what other can 对药 together. I don't know 对药 pairing, is that in English? I think this is amazingly way, the strategy is teaching us how to do that. So I hope that you guys, when you guys are going through whole day yesterday, not just for that, it's just a method that you have to acquire. It's a strategy. 老师 didn't give you a fish. 老师 is giving you a fishing pole. So you got to learn the skill, skeleton, the strategy to apply those herbs, because some of these herbs that you might not be able to access, right? So you have to learn them. What are the taste? What is the territory? What's the temperature? So you'll be able to maybe using some other herb to replace the one that Lao Si say will the beautiful, right? Again, it's a strategy I want you to remember. No matter which channel, no matter what's going on with the disease, you'll be able to do this. This is a multiplication of the. I think even Lao Si say that he didn't read the Yellow Emperor Internal Medicine book, but you know, Chinese people, when they write those books, they will say, okay, the kidney will support the water, you'll work with the heart, so the kidney and the heart, and then of course you know the water, the next to the water, 水生木 wood will work with the other element. Then what happened? They never say etc etc etc. They're not going to tell you all the examples. So I know Lao Shi is doing all that to help us to be able to do this. So that was the conclusion of all this, that we have to put the work in. And as I tell Lao Shi all the time, the herb class, never enough. Every herb class works. The more we listen to it, the more we read about it, the more just have a book like this. When I wrote down all these notes yesterday, and I just open it whenever I have time. I sit in the car waiting for the traffic light. I'll just flip a page. Okay, Changshan, what does Changshan can do? I just keep on reviewing it, because we're not going to remember any of this. Why? Because it's too much information. That's why Lao Shi have that book. So my recommendation to you is learn the strategy so you can apply to all the things that you need to do, all the herb that you need to do. If you don't understand it, again, don't worry. Learn the pairing first. When you have the pairing, then you'll be able to. And you already, it's like Lao Si gave you 500 bottle of the soy sauce. You just need to know how to mix the soy sauce to make it the most beautiful pork belly hong sao rou. It feels like Lao Shi teaching us to become yi, so you know how to make the beautiful dish. But again, if you don't know how to pair together, you will be hard time. Well, Am I talking too long already? So today I'm gonna get this time back to 老师. So this is what I learned. I'm sure that you have a lot of things that come on into your head. Maybe we can share a little bit because I'm gonna give the focus back to 老师. Thank you everybody for joining us. And today is the level 2, the day number 6. And then we will talk about level 3 in the future. But the most important is practice, practice, practice. Then you have the muscle memory. Every time you learn something is new that you feel that you don't understand, or it's the same thing that you're going to learn it again, same thing as a balanced method acupuncture, even though you think you know everything already. But when you start listening to other people's class, for example, me instead of Dr. Tan, you will know it's totally different class. Please go ahead, take your time whenever you have, listen to it, listen to it, listen to it. Okay, I will give the floor back to 老师, and I will be behind the scene. Love you guys. 老师, you might want to turn on the microphone.
Microphone's on, Shimo. Everybody hear me? Good. So I really like what our Shimo was talking about here this morning, because I can see by what she's saying that she actually really understands what we're doing here, which is really critically important. So again, I'm not just trying to teach you everything about every herb. That doesn't work in that way, and there's actually no way to do it because it's too complex. But what I'm doing is I'm giving you a variety of strategies and then giving lots of examples, simple examples. So like yesterday, we picked the Xiaogucao, and basically we spent the whole day doing Xiaogucao and doing different sort of pivots with Xiaogucao to learn all the different ways that we can do it. So we did, I don't know, maybe over 100 examples of how to pivot with the Xiaogucao. And yes, we're using the single herbs. We'll always be using the single herbs as individuals, but the real issue is how do we combine them into groups, when and what time. So we're not just doing the individual pairings here. What I'm doing also is teaching you how to stack those up, and that's really what makes your formulas, okay? So the most important thing when we are, when we're actually sitting down to make a formula actually comes from our first classes. And what is that most important thing? The most important thing is the diagnosis has to be really accurate. From the diagnosis, once we know the diagnosis, we can come up with the treatment principle. And once we come up with the treatment principle, basically the treatment principle means so the diagnosis means we're defining what the problem is, okay? Treatment principle means we figured out what we need to do, how to fix it, okay? So problem, how do we fix the problem? What are we going to do? Okay, then all we're doing is we're assembling, we're looking through, we're scanning through all of our different options, and we're finding what is going to fulfill our treatment principle in the best way. Okay, so maybe that's one herb, like I love how Sherman just said, the most beautiful herb. Okay, so we find the most beautiful herb to do that. Okay, but then we have to look, all right, is that really fulfilling everything? So then we start thinking, okay, more like how do we create really a truly like a global balance? Or for some reason, we're not going to use a global balance. Then we want to figure out as a part of our treatment principle, what are the channels that we're going to use? Just like we do with the acupuncture. What are the channels that we're going to use? Then we find the herbs that do that. Then we say, okay, well, what are the qualities that we want to bring to that area? That's also a part of our treatment principle. Okay, so we've got a hot disease, we're going to use cold disease, or we're going to use cold herbs, etc., like that, right? So we're using, remember, we're practicing a kind of allopathic medicine when we're using the herbs. Why do I call it allopathic medicine? Because it is. Because what it means is we're treating with the opposites. Okay, just like when we do the certain levels of the balance method, those simple levels where we're treating the opposite, okay? So that's how we're doing it. We're using the herbs to balance the condition, okay? So when we're doing that, okay, we come up with the herb that is the most beautiful, then we try to fit that into what our balance pattern is. And we let our balance pattern determine what the entire formula is going to be, okay? So hand, yin, hand, yang, foot, yin, foot, yang, okay? That's why I'm saying if you can do that, you're going to be on the right track. You will automatically be creating a very balanced formula if you do that, all right? So that's the main idea of what we're doing here. So if we can't do it with a single herb, sure, we might give it a shot with a single herb, but it's rare that we can nail something that completely, or that it will be strong and precise enough. It is possible, and it's great to try to do that. And we want to try to err on the side of elegance if we can. If it looks like we can use a single herb to address the entire problem, give it a try, right? Give it a try, that's fine. If not, then we have to like start filling in what our balance pattern is. We have to start filling it in and using various herbs. We're going to fill that in and we're going to say, okay, well, it looks like we need to maybe tonify a little bit more. It looks like maybe we need a little bit more UB here. Maybe we need a little bit more lung over here, right? Okay. Oh, now we need some more large intestine, but now we need some spleen too, right? To keep it. So truly, if we look at the classical formulas, that's exactly what they're doing. They're actually creating global balance with their formulas. And that's the system. That's the whole system. And the rest is just pulling in different kinds of substances that'll do what we want to do. But the main thing is determining what we need to do. And then it's just a matter of figuring out, well, how are we going to do that? Okay. So the rest is about stacking. Okay. So we decide with our formula, how strong does it need to be? How much depth do we need in our formula? And that's why I'm showing you what the stacking is. So we can, like yesterday, we stacked for half the day with the bitter and acrid. Okay, it's because we were deciding to make formulas that were more and more bitter and acrid. So we could just add those qualities. Or we can do it by meridian, right? We could do it by the channel. Okay, we need more large intestine, we need more lung, we need more UB, we need more spleen, whatever it is, okay? We could do it somewhat by temperature. Temperature is kind of the, it's the most, like we can mix the temperatures together and it winds up creating something that is kind of blended for the most part, unless we use extreme temperature herbs, right? So anytime you see that very hot or very cold, that's going to bring an extreme quality. It's going to like flip things from yin to yang. It's going to be a little bit crazy. That's why I suggest be a little careful with those herbs. Like with the Huanglian is very cold, right? But people are using the Huanglian in all these crazy ways from our perspective. But because it has that very, it can wind up doing all kinds of extreme things. So we want to be careful with anything that has a very hot or very cold nature. Because of that extreme nature, we don't want to flip things around. And then after that, we can blend according to the temperatures. Then we look at the qualities that we want to have in terms of our different tastes. Okay, so we can get an idea. Wow, maybe we can just determine something by taste, and we don't think too much about anything else. Okay, but the 3 T's are really what are guiding us. And then we look at the patient. How strong does it need to be? How much color do we want to add? Okay, so that's another way that we can look at it. With the single herb, we do a basic drawing. That's why I try to get you guys do these basic drawings, okay? We do the basic, like a pencil, beautiful pencil drawing with that primary herb. Then after that, we start, let's say, shading still with the same pencil, right? We still use the same color. But then we start adding some detail as we thresh out whatever our treatment principle is going to be with some of those other herbs. We start adding those in, okay? Now we have a very strong structure, we have a beautiful thing. Then we can start adding other herbs for color as well. And that can go on and on and on and on. But at a certain point, it gets to be an overkill. Like you don't really need to do more. So when you're coloring your picture, there's a certain time when it'll look the best that it's gonna look. But after that time, if you keep coloring, it's going to turn it into something else, and you might destroy that original beauty of the drawing that you were making. So that's the idea of what we're doing here, okay? So the whole point of this series of classes with the level 2 classes is that I really want to get you familiar with, I want to get all of us more familiar with this process of what I'm doing. I'm scanning things in a very sort of methodical way, and I'm giving you some of my insights as to what these different pairings do, how we can use these pairings, because I'm giving you a really deep idea of how to do it. Now, we've only just gotten to, where are we? Clear heat, dry dampness. We've only actually done, I don't know, maybe this is the 4th category or something. There's 35 categories. And those are just the categories that are in the normal pharmacopoeias. So we're pulling apart category, okay? But there's no way we're gonna go through all of them. What I'm doing is I'm teaching you the process of how to do it. Then we take those things and we apply them. And then you're gonna need to do it on your own, just like you needed to do some of those other exercises on your own. Because the truth is, when we start multiplying all of these different factors together, when we start looking at all the different herbs, it's too complex. It would take years and years and years for me to present every single possibility to you. Now, in the future, I will thresh out these classes in a different format. But it won't mean that we're going to have to sit down for 200 hours or something and go through all of it. It's going to be in more bite-sized pieces in the future. But now, for this first group of Mingjie students, which you guys are, what I'm doing is I'm giving you previews of what the whole system is about, okay? I'm giving you previews, and I'm giving you all the elements that you need to create the system for yourself, okay? And actually, you're going to benefit a lot from doing that, from doing these different exercises and then applying this for yourself. Like I say, you know, I have thousands and thousands of pages of notes just for this class. So that's sort of all the ideas for this class, but we're only going to get to a fraction of them. The important thing is that you understand the process that I'm using. As you internalize this process, you'll be able to do it very quickly. The reason why we're taking the time to do it is so I'm giving you the understanding that I have of what a lot of these herb combinations do. So you can begin to internalize it and begin to understand, oh yeah, this is a fun game that we can play. Let's just try making these wacky combinations, okay? Maybe it's not the most beautiful combination, but maybe it's even an insane combination that nobody would do. But you know what? The truth is that there are actually more insane pathologies and more insane people in situations than there are different combinations of insane herbs that we can create. So there's going to be somebody that's going to fit whatever that combination is somewhere, sometime. All right. So that's the idea of what I'm trying to give you is I'm giving you the format for a game that you can play with yourself. And like Sherma says, wow, I was wondering what that book was that she was waving. That's the book of notes that she's taken so far. That's pretty amazing. So yeah, the point of what we're doing here is not to try to memorize what we're doing, but what it is to internalize the process that we're using. And then you can use those books, those formulary companions. That's where all the work is. That's where, remember I told you, the worst place to keep information is in your head. Okay, but we're all taught to do that. We're all taught that that is the way to do it. But I'm trying to say, actually, that's going to screw you up clinically. You will accumulate information and knowledge as you go through this process, and things will begin to come automatically to you as you do it. But don't try to memorize it. Don't try to cram it all into your head and your brain, because that is just, it's going to fill up your head and it'll just confuse you. Okay, so that's the whole point. So thank you for bringing that up, Shimo. Thank you for bringing all of that up around our process. Now, I actually want to bring Shermu back online here and talk about something else. There he is.
I'm back.
Hello.
Hi.
So, you and I talked a little bit yesterday about some really interesting, mysterious, and magical transformation that you noticed started happening with your practice.
Yes.
You started using the herbs.
Yes.
And so I'm wondering if you could tell the students about that, because this is a really interesting and I think important factor. And it is kind of mysterious and it's fun. So that's why I want to talk with everybody about it.
All right. Yesterday, I was talking to you about May 1st. I changed all my practice. I gave up all insurance patients, no more insurance. I do not accept anything start on May 1st. The only thing I thought about is I might be losing a lot of patients, which I did. That's okay. And I raised my price to $75 per person instead of $65 or $60. And the follow-up treatment is $75. Then I know I can only work. I only want to work 3 hours a day. That means I see patient 3 hours, and then I will wait for 1 hour, total 4 hours. So each hours I see 6 patients. So it's only 18 patients. 18 patients times 75 is not enough to run the clinic. I'm just giving you a business idea. So I say, you know what? I only do acupuncture for so long. I know how to do herbs and I'm very good at herbs, but I never really practiced that. All right, 老师. So because of the understanding of how to using the herbs and the formulas and single herbs together, then I realized I can do this. So every patient that comes in with all the problems, no matter from the low back pain to the neck and shoulder pain, and to the depression, to the digestion issue, to the fibroids, to the allergies, the first thing I ask them, will you open to use herbs, to take herbs? 99% of people say yes. Then I can add it on the herbs to increase the results in between the treatments, because I only work Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And then sometimes Sean and Cindy will see my patient on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday for me. But again, it's not as beautiful that you can continue to see them for so many times. But if you can have some herb in between to really sustain the results of the acupuncture, all right? So I choose to use acupuncture first. 老师, you may be using more herb than the acupuncture, or acupuncture with the herb, because you also have a very limited time to see your patient. So then I see, what if I just give them the herbs? So now my business increasing for herbal patients, almost everybody taking herbs now, plus the acupuncture. The results in between is amazingly beautiful. I treated a patient with a pulmonary inflammation, itis, something like that. I can't remember the name. And I gave a strong Huang Qi, the heavy dosage of Huang Qi and heavy dosage of the Dongchong Xia Cao. I know it's a very expensive herb, but it's chronic. She had it since she was a baby. So I treated her for 17 treatments plus the herbs. Now she's off the oxygen.
Yeah.
For her whole life, she's using oxygen every single moment. Now she's off the oxygen, so she can travel. So now I see this, and I see all those difficult patients keep on popping up. No longer pain patient, they're all gone, so disappear, right? 老师, I talked to you about it. And
Yes.
then now the results are much better and sustain much longer. So I don't have to have a very busy practice and just keep on poking people. Then I can use the herb.
Yeah.
I have to tell you this, when you have an acupuncture head, you're thinking acupuncture all the time. It's easy. I was thinking for 17 years. When I add in the herbs, I get so exhausted. I only see this little patients, like 20 to 25 patients a day for 3 days. I will be so exhausted. I need to go home, lay down, because I don't have that muscle memory. I don't have the remember of all the herbs, like what we're doing today, yesterday. I don't have my own personal notes. This is my notes. It's not 老师's book. So I was so tired, but I know my sales per day went up and patients' results went up even better. I just like to tell you this. When I start Mingjie, I wasn't expecting this. And I want to thank you, 老师, give me a way to think. I am not counting on you to teach me every single one of these things.
Right.
It's my job to learn all the herbal classes, whatever that I can get my hands on. I will do herbs. And anytime I will read my herb book, because I am adding herb to another big part of my practice, from the acupuncture to the herb. I'm still doing acupuncture, don't get me wrong. It's still people don't want acupuncture, don't want herbs. but I have no problem of using different tool on my tool belt to make it happen.
Yeah.
So this is what I want to share with everybody. Lao Tzu, is this what you want me to tell everybody?
Yes, and there's one part of what you discussed that I want to discuss more deeply. Thank
Okay.
you for sharing that with us. And that's a beautiful transformation, right? So now when Shirmu came to us first with her many years of experience of the acupuncture, right? Just using the acupuncture, we have this most incredible acupuncture system. So we get used to using it and it becomes very easy, right? But still, when Shirmu came to us in this way, she's like the caterpillar, right? Crawling along doing the acupuncture like that, just the acupuncture, right? But then she started learning some of the ideas. And without even really trying, she started noticing, hey, wow, I could start using some of the herbs. So she started adding the herbs in. And then what's happening is she's in the cocoon. And so it's difficult in that time when you're first learning how to do it, when you're in that cocoon, right? Because it seems it's really exhausting when you first start doing it. But when you first started practicing balance, it was really exhausting also compared to what you learned originally, right? So it's the same thing. So you go in that cocoon, but now
Feels like in the Wuji.
yeah,
Feels like in the Wuji.
yeah, it's
Yes, it's
a
like, what do I do? I don't know what to do.
definitely, that's what it's like. It's just lun, right? It's just lun, right? To chaos, right? So you go through that period. So all of us are going to be in that period for a while, okay? But that's when we're in the cocoon. But now what's happening is Shirmu is coming out like the butterfly, right? And she didn't anticipate it. She didn't think about it in this way, but it's freeing her practice. It's freeing her so she doesn't have to be doing the acupuncture. I don't want to minimize the acupuncture at all. The acupuncture is the key to what we're doing. It's always the key to what we're doing. And we're acupuncturists will always be acupuncturists primarily. Why? Because it teaches us how to think. And it teaches us how to directly work with what's going on. And the whole time we're working with the patient, we're understanding all the dimensions and the subtleties and the nuances of what it is that we're trying to create, how we're trying to sculpt this patient's life into something that is a fuller and more healthy expression of who they are, okay? It's not our idea, and we're not trying to fit them into a box. We're trying to see how like each one of our patients is a butterfly also, right? And so we're trying to help them
Yes.
to come out and express that, or how to flower, how to transform. What's the transformation that we're helping them come through? So the way that I look at it in many ways is that when we're doing the acupuncture, it's like we're the architect. We're the architect as we go in there and we say, okay, this is what we need to do. And this is how, and we're setting the whole field. So the architect goes in and says, this is what we need to do, and begins the process and begins moving the energy in that way, okay? But if you just have architects, you don't get any houses built, right? You need the construction workers. So the herbs are the construction workers. It gives the body all of these different tools. Sure, for a lot of conditions, if we just do the acupuncture, over time, the body can pull together and it can do what it needs to do. But it's kind of like building a house all by yourself when you do that, right? Just based on the food you eat. And that's what a lot of people try to do. And it can work, but it's a lot of work. And you have to really dedicate your life to it in a certain way. But when you start using the herbs, each one of these herbs is the embodiment of some incredible thing from nature. Some incredible thing from nature that gives us a perfect tool to deal with a condition. So it gives us it's like an incredible shortcut that we get to take, because it gives the body the actual physical substance that it needs in order to fulfill what it needs to do. So that's an incredible, incredible advantage to using the herbs in that way. So it's the construction workers, and it's also the materials to build that house. So that's really, really important. So thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
Our Shirmu is going through this transformation. See, she's seeing, look how much happier she is now. She's becoming that beautiful butterfly, because it's freeing her from needing to always be there, like maintaining the patient's energy. Yes.
老师 also, I think I also have this feeling, not feeling, just understanding is John Maxwell, myself, we gave you our formulas.
Yeah.
Because of the way that you practice for a while, so you right away you can pinpoint to us what will be the necessary,
Yeah.
what will be the diagnosis.
Yeah.
That's what we lack of. I'm sure like my students like Sean and Lisa, they know everything about the herb. They know how to pair them. They know how to get that. But when do they use this? That I think that is the most part that they are most confused right now. I think we need to do more for them. Like John is taking herbs for years, and then only until you give him all the little things and adjustment and he feel the results. And I feel much better with my fingers. It's still continue improving because I have that tweaks from you. When can we be able to read out the frustration, and then how can you guide us to be there? I think a lot of student wants to know, but I just the one that talk to you.
Yeah.
Now.
Yeah.
If
So
we can get that, the diagnosis.
yeah, so that really comes from the diagnosis. It really comes from the diagnosis. And in some ways, it's like what I'm doing is I'm giving each one of you, I'm giving you a Ferrari.
I don't know where the shifting is.
Yeah, but you have to learn how to drive it. Okay, if you just go from driving your Prius to the Ferrari, it's going to take some time to learn how to do that.
I already crashed very much so.
And some experience, right? Yeah.
So my question is how to get them, all the people here right now, we have 15 people, how to get them to be able to sharpen what their senses. I know it need muscle memory. I totally get that. Give us a way so at least they can, for example, that Sean can see his patient that with confidence, at least to try, or Lisa. They're just like, 老师,师傅, what am I supposed to do? I see all this, but what to get the number one thing they need to tackle so they can see the patient improvement, so they will be able to feel confidence. So after a year of practice, we might have level 3 or smaller classes. So you can continue, lead us, guide us.
Definitely.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely that's going to be happening. So what I'm doing with all of these classes is I'm trying to give you the best insights into the structure of how to get you to that place as quickly as possible, right? Okay. This is what I'm doing when I'm kind of reading you guys in that way. I'm doing it based on what you're showing me. Plus, we have very limited tools with what we can do online here. If we could do the pulses or something, that would be a whole other level. So most of what I do with the diagnosis comes from the pulse taking. Yeah, I can say that most of what, in terms of the pinpoint, being able to really precisely understand all the complexity of what's going on with a patient, right? But also for sure, there's visual diagnosis and all kinds of other diagnoses that come. I think I told you during one of the classes that when I was working with Sifu Lai, he had an office down in Chinatown in San Francisco. And then frequently when I'd be there with him at his clinic, he would say, come on, let's go for a walk. And we'd go for a walk. And then, you know, we'd be walking down the street and we're walking one way and other people walking the other way. So he would point one person out walking down the street. And by the time they walked past us, I had to give him a full diagnosis, right? Just like that. So we have to use all the available tools, all the available tools. So when someone comes in, you take a look at them, just practice coming up with the diagnosis, just when you first look at them. And then after that, it becomes interesting to either confirm or disconfirm what your original idea was. Okay, so don't just go hunting for the information that's going to confirm what you're thinking about to begin with. But what you want to do is you want to say, okay, based on what I'm seeing here, all these other factors, we have to put all these other factors. That's why we have all these different methods of diagnosis in Chinese medicine, although we don't really talk about it too much in that way. we have all these different methods, right? We have the looking, listening, smelling, right? All these different ways, the feeling, the touch, right, with the pulse and the different kinds of palpation. So we do all of these things. And then also, an important dimension of what we're talking about here is when we are, so we come up with the diagnosis, we're doing the acupuncture on the people, yeah? So the whole process of doing the acupuncture actually is what gives us the depth and the dimension to understand, right? So you know, when you come up with your diagnosis, you say, okay, I'm going to do such and such kind of a treatment with somebody. Now, here's what I hope. I hope when you come up with that idea that you don't just go in, what a lot of average practitioners do is they come up with an idea. Oh, I'm going to use whatever, the 13 magic points, right? So then what they do, the average practitioner, what they're going to do is they know where those points are, and then they go boom, 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 and then they leave. Okay. So the average practitioner will have some results when they do that. But what an advanced practitioner is going to do and an exceptional practitioner is going to do is they're going to have that idea, but then when they encounter the patient, they're going to go into the territory and they're going to know based on their idea, okay, I know I want to do these points, but then maybe the book says that the point is in a certain area, right? But when you think of how small a needle is compared to how large that area might be, let's just choose this, okay? So some areas point locations are really big and some are really, really, really tiny. But even those really tiny points, when you consider how small the point of the needle is, if you really look at a needle, that actually goes from something that's substantial all the way down to infinity. It's actually that small. So it's very easy to miss the point if you're just going on an idea. That's why Shermo tells us, we have to go with the Asher. We go with the Asher idea, right? It's not that we're just randomly doing points all over the place. No, we have an idea. We have a structure that we're working in, but we narrow it down, but then we narrow it down even further. Okay, here's where it is. The patient goes, wow, like that. Okay, and the more chi that you have, and what's interesting is that as you develop your practice, okay, like Shermo developed herself from seeing so many patients for such a long time, okay? So now Shermo can go up to somebody and she has a diagnosis, she touched the person, the patient go, wow, and they feel it. But what's so interesting is that if you had the patient try to feel in that area, it wouldn't feel like that. So it's what I'm telling you guys is it's the interaction between the patient and the practitioner that creates that alchemy, okay? And the more advanced the practitioner is, then they can their hands will just go into those areas, boom, that's what it is. Okay, so even when your hand finds it, but there's still a huge gap between when your hand finds it and then you grab the needle, okay, and then you put the needle and you do like that. But still, once the needle's there, you start off very superficially, okay, then finally, and then what are you doing? You're adjusting. You don't just throw a needle in and split. No way. You have to actually find the chi. You have to get that chi, whatever that means. And that doesn't always mean that the patient is flying off the table and screaming. No, that's not what it means at all. You as the practitioner, you're feeling what is the point of the deepest resonance, okay? And you'll feel it through the needle. And if you're really very, very sensitive and developed with your own chi, you'll feel actually that the chi isn't just at the point. If you get the true Da Chi, it resonates through the patient's whole body, okay? So that's like the golden lesson for today, even if we don't do anything else. If you think about that, that's really, really important. If you can get the chi to resonate through their whole body, you're going to be a super, super advanced level practitioner. And then what is so beautiful about how we do the acupuncture, it's because once that resonance happens with that point, okay, then it's going like that, all right? Then you go to the next point, you do the same, okay? But then you have some kind of harmony going on, right? So all the different points, each one is a resonating center, but then it creates these patterns, and then those points start talking with each other. And that's the beauty of the balance acupuncture, is because we have a systematic way that we're doing it, and we're opening up other levels of channels that most people don't talk about. So that's what's so beautiful. So as we do that kind of a practice, what I'm saying, how does it really apply to the herbs? What I'm saying is that that whole process that you go through when you're giving the person the acupuncture, that's exactly what gives you the depth and dimension of what you're going to do with your formula. Okay? That's what gives all the color.
We need to get there
Yeah.
fast.
Yeah.
They're all the anxious bodies right here, that everybody are very studious students. I understand when I was in the Wuji. And I finally have a little tentacle comes out. So I'm still a very baby in this field, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm being humble too, of course.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But
Well,
the result is phenomenal. I'm just hoping that we all can be able to be as fast as we can. That's all. That's all.
Yeah. Yeah. So thank you. And that's true. And this is what we're doing here. This is the fastest way, even though it doesn't seem like it. What I'm
Yes.
doing is I'm giving you the core. And when you start practicing it, then you go, oh, yeah. So each one of the herbs that we learn how to use, even though, okay, yesterday we did Xiaokucao in a lot of depth. Okay, we got a lot of different dimension. But there's still so much more to learn about Xiaokucao. Okay, this is the thing. So if we go back to, my core notes on all of these, we would never get through even one single herb, honestly, because there's so much depth to each one of them. So that's why with each pass, with each time we look at a particular herb, okay, we're getting another facet. It's like with each herb, we're cutting a diamond. Okay, so what you see in the pharmacopoeia is just like a rock. It's a rock that has certain qualities, but I'm teaching us how to become a gem cutter so that we can get the best, beautiful, shiny thing out of each one of these herbs. So each time we look at an herb, we're making one of those cuts, and it becomes a little bit more like a diamond, okay? But it becomes a diamond inside you, not in some pharmacopoeia or not in some other book. It's all the books and all the knowledge and all the experience and everything coming together. So that diamond is in you because it's in how you use it, how you learn how to use the herb, okay? So we'll talk about Xiaokucao in a lot of different contexts, okay? We're not done with Xiaokucao. We won't be done with Xiaokucao. We won't be done with any of the herbs. We won't ever be done because we're constantly looking from all these different ways of learning how to combine them with the different patients, okay? But honestly, none of this is an important discussion to have, right? But none of this is actually what I wanted to go into with talking with Shermu here this morning. What I wanted to open up this window that she talked about just very briefly, and that is that she noticed that when she started using these new tools, when she started using these new herbal tools, something happened, and this is the magic and mysterious part. Something very interesting happened. What happened was that the kind of patients that started coming to see her completely changed. So previously, she was treating a lot of pain patients. People come in for the pain, right? Because that was the focus of her practice. Those are the tools that she had. She thought that the tools that she had were primarily for treating pain. But then through our practice of using the herbs, we start understanding that those tools that we originally taught to do with acupuncture, to use for pain, actually have a huge number of other ways that it can be applied to all kinds of different medicine. So we learned that more about the acupuncture through doing the herbs. And then as we build these tools with the herbs, what's interesting that happens when we gain the new tools and the new abilities, all of a sudden, different people start coming to see us. So we start seeing patients according to our abilities. And that's who comes in for the treatment, because on some strange level, everybody's aware of what you can do as a practitioner and what you can't do as a practitioner. Okay, so this is why I'm saying it's so interesting that Sherman, even with all your practice and all your fame as an acupuncturist, when you start getting these new tools, suddenly the completely different group of people comes to start seeing you. Is really, really, really interesting. So I'm sure that the rest of you guys are going to start experiencing this as well as your tools expand. So this is the good news. You're going to be seeing all kinds of patients. Okay, this is the good news. So this is the kind of true, is like the esoteric marketing, right? You're not really doing the marketing at all, but when your abilities increase, all of a sudden those people will find you. And especially the people who can't be helped by anybody else. On some level, in some animal level, those people are going to know how to find you, and they're going to wind up finding you. You have to trust the force in that way, right? Because it's going to bring people to you according to your abilities. So that's the good news. And maybe the challenging news around it is that the patients that are going to come to you in that way are really going to challenge your abilities. And so that's why our patients actually are our best teachers.
Yes.
They're the ones that are really, really going to teach us. You're going to come up with some unbelievably challenging things. We always have to be able to go into Wuji state. So on some level, we're butterflies, some level we're a caterpillar, and sometime we're in some way we're always in a Wuji. We have to be willing to understand that we're actually all those different stages of the butterfly all at the same time. So we have to acknowledge what we can do and feel good about that. We need to be humble about what we can't do. And then we also have to be able to be hungry to learn more and more from each patient. This is a process that continues to go on and on. It's happening with me all the time. Honestly, I don't want to tell you guys the kinds of things that walk through my door at this point, because it would scare you. It would actually scare you, because as our abilities rise, the challenge also rises, and that can go to some incredible places, some incredible ways, like that. Okay, so we have some questions that are coming through.
Lao Shi,
Yes,
I just want to add a side note.
Yes.
After I start practicing herbs, and then I didn't use the pulse, I more using the tongue diagnosis. So after I get rid of all the insurance patients, and I start even sending, and then with the class of the herbs, I have a patient just mail order for herbs and consistently increasing. I usually never really, maybe once a year, mailing some herb to somebody. Now I consistently mailing herb to my patients.
Yeah. So they just send you a picture of their tongue or something like that? Yeah.
And their whole body and their tongue, and then I talk to them on the phone. Not at the pandemic, it's after the pandemic. After I shifted for more of the herbs now. Yeah. So the people shows up. Yeah, definitely. So the possibilities for doing like a combination of that and remote treatment, I know Sherman, you were experimenting with and some of the other students experimenting with the remote treatments. The possibilities for that are really very, very interesting. You could go live in Costa Rica or something and have Coco Loco every day and treat the patients like that if you want. You can do it. Makes what we're doing very, very flexible. Yeah. I'm sure there's a question asked you, how much are you supposed to charge for the herbal consultations? What's that? That's I don't know. I really don't know. It really depends on so many things. It really should be dependent on how good an herbalist you are, how good a diagnostician you are. And also what makes sense on a practical level. How much time are you really spending with each patient? You have to, on the bottom lines, you have to do a calculation of how much is your time worth, right? Because we're selling our time essentially when we're doing that. So you have to take a look at really what is it, all the different factors that are gonna
that are going to make that worth your while to spend that time with the patient in doing the herbal consultation. So I can't give you, that's going to be different for different people at different times, what people's needs are, and what they feel comfortable with, and also what they can get away with too, right? But it should be something that's fair. It needs to be something that's fair both to you as a practitioner and also to the patient. And then after that, okay, maybe as you get better and better, then you can ethically push the ceiling a little bit of how much you can charge. Because it's a fact that if someone comes to you for a herbal consultation, they're going to be getting something more than if they just go to Joe Blow for an herbal consultation, right? So you have to make an honest assessment of really where do you stand. And it can't be this sort of like millennial version of like, oh, I think I'm worth such and such, and then ask for a ridiculous price. That's not good. There are a lot of practitioners in LA who are like following along those lines, along those models. And I don't want any of us to be like that, okay? Sure, we want to come up with a realistic understanding of what our value is. So that's all I can really say about that. But be humble.
Well, I have a cowboy way.
Yeah. What is that?
I have a cowboy way because herbal consultation, regardless you're talking to me for 1 minute or 10 minutes, I charge you $45. It's cheaper than acupuncture because 10 minutes I can treat a patient for 75. An herbal consultation is 45, and I plus whatever the herb that they have to purchase. Can be 60, can be 120, can be $300. It depends on whatever the problem is for the herb that they're going separately. But I have to charge a consultation fee for $45 because that's my time. That's a block of time that I give it to you and chat with you. So comparing with acupuncture is 75 because it is literally that you have to lay there for an hour. But I may be talking to you only 5 minutes. I have to physically go in there and using my energy and my thoughts. Of course, my herbs also doing that. And maybe I'm just a little butterfly, not a big butterfly. Yeah, so I only charge $45 just for flat fee, so people know don't waste my time. That's the whole reason why I charge that amount of money. If they just come over, I want a herbal consultation. Well, you have to pay,
Yeah, that's absolutely the case. That's very, very true. Don't just give it away, right? Don't just give it away because your time is very important, and this is what you're doing. You're not doing it as a hobby, and you're not doing it as anything else. You're doing it because you're there to have a business. So you have to respect yourself. That's the most important thing. You have to respect yourself and find what the most ethical and most practical and most ethical at the same time fee would be for that. Okay.
Right. So the other doctor, I don't know if you know Jimmy John, he's also charged about $45 plus the herbs $80. So he makes basically he's charging $130 for his patient per person. So I evaluate all these numbers and then I decided, $45. Some people I diagnose one time, and if it's the same thing, just come to refill the herbs. I might not charge him for the diagnosis fee because the front desk already said, are they the same? They're the same. And then I look at them the same, and then I refill them. I might not charge him for the diagnosis fee, but if they're coming for herbal consultation, I charge them. So just to share that with everybody.
Yeah. That's all very good. And so see, this is really interesting because there are questions and issues that come up once we start doing the herbal practice. Well, how much of our practice do we really want to be herbal practice? And how much do we want to be acupuncture practice and like that? So what I'm advocating for, because we are all essentially acupuncturists, right? And this is why I'm advocating and sort of going along these general lines, that really the diagnosis isn't fully done until we're done giving them the acupuncture. You understand my meaning? So this is what I'm talking about really getting all the way into exactly what the points are and getting that whole resonance going with the whole patient, right? So that's the fullest form of the diagnosis. But as we get better and better at doing that, we see more and more people and like that. Sure, we can do it virtually instant diagnosis on people. And the rest of it is about either confirming or disconfirming it or going into the depths of the understanding of the diagnosis, okay? So like when I'm treating you guys, when I'm giving you guys the herbal suggestions online like this, okay, we're just doing it based on the story and a little bit that I can tell from looking at you. So it's just basically doing a visual diagnosis, and then we have the people stick the tongue out like that. Okay, so it's just basically we're doing a pure visual diagnosis. It has nothing to do with a palpation. So like that. Like that. So that's what I'm doing when we're talking like that. So also I get an idea from talking with you a little bit. Okay, maybe it's going in this direction, maybe it's going in that direction. So I get the best idea. Is it 100% like bullseye? Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But can I really say with 100% confidence, just from your visual diagnosis, I know this is exactly what I can't, right? Because I'm missing so much of the information that I would normally use. I'm missing all that palpation. I'm missing, so many things. We only get a certain level of dimension through a screen. But it's better than nothing. Yeah. So it's interesting because during the COVID time, it forced many of us to learn how to interact in this way, and not just as acupuncturists. Everybody in technological society, we had to learn how to communicate in this way. So we do what we can. We do what we can. And listen, guys, there's going to be more and more and more pandemics that come up in the future. There're going to be more and more all kinds of different disasters. So we have to be flexible with how we treat people, because it's better to do something than to do nothing. Okay.
Oh, sure. I like to share with you a case study. Sean, very short, 1 minute, I promise. Sean has a patient from Los Angeles, and he is 52 years old. He just married a new wife. He wants to have a children, and he is the dock person who moving the cargoes from the boat to the land to the boat. So he has to control this crane thing. So when we hear that, so when I heard that with my friend, and then we will say, oh, don't worry, just tonify, give in the yang tonic, la 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 la, and then you can do this, la 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 la. We didn't see the tongue, we didn't see the person, we didn't see nothing, right? And then he says, oh, I just have a little sweat sensations like that. And then he's a big guy, and then was all just to do that. And then we tell Sean, maybe not, maybe you should need to get this guy come in because it's 50 some years old, maybe some complications. Then when we see him in person, if we really give him the herb, like the description of what he wants, this person will die with high blood pressure, basically. Then I was like, oh my God, I'm so happy that I see this person. Even a photo or video or anything is better than just listen to it and they prescribe herbs. It would kill somebody. I was so excited that I learned this experience from that, because I just feel something is wrong. I have to see the person. Then we make this person drive all the way from LA to San Diego. And then he's so much better after we really see the person getting the acupuncture and herb together. Is really good for me to learn that never prescribe herb blindly.
It's very, very, very important. So in that way, this comes back to our first classes that we were talking about when we're comparing the acupuncture and the herbs. Because in some ways, when we do the balance treatment on somebody, so much of it happens automatically. And so we don't have to worry about it, because so much will happen automatically. And what we're doing is we're working with the body's natural tendency to want to conform to its own zheng qi, and we're helping the zheng qi to do what it normally does. But when we're using the herbs, it's a totally different story. Nothing happens automatically when we're using the herbs. And there are a lot of people around who are claiming that they're herbalists. But really what they're doing is they're using all these adaptogenic herbs. So that's the adaptogenic herbs are using the same kind of an idea. You give the patient the herbs, and then the body will automatically know what to do. Now, I'm not putting down the adaptogenic qualities. That's a really, really important thing. But the problem is that there are people who are out there who are calling themselves herbalists, and they're just giving people the adaptogenic herbs, and they aren't really doing anything as herbalists. They're just selling people those adaptogenic herbs and hoping for the best. Okay, so outside of that adaptogenic trend, we can't depend on anything happening automatically. So we really have to be the ones that are driving the Ferrari when we're using the herbs. And that's why I use that analogy of the Ferrari. You know, we're not in a Prius. When we step on the gas, we're going to go somewhere when we're using the herbs. Okay, and so it's very, very important to be aware when we're doing it. And we can't. Sherman brings up a very, very good point. Don't just think that someone might want something. Okay, like a patient might want something, but what does that have to do with what their actual capacity is based on who they are right now? Okay, and a lot of people have this expectation that they can just take something and then boom, they're going to pop into what they want to be. But there's a progression. I mean, sometimes that happens. That's great in some ways when that can happen. But how long is it going to take to get the patient from point A to point B? What's that process going to be? We do our best to help them to get there. But the question is also, how are they going to transform? We live in a very self-centered and kind of unusual society where people who truly have the expectation that they can do anything that they want, have no consequences whatsoever, and they can have anything that they want, including any state of being that they want, just by magically thinking that like it can just happen automatically. But that's not true. It's just not true. It has no basis in reality whatsoever, you know? So let's say we were talking about a patient last week who came to me recently, and she had the really severe back problems, you know? Really severe back problems that were complicated by she had a botched surgery on top of it all, right? But she also had a very strong attitude. She thought that she could just get anything that she wanted. But the problem was this person, in thinking that she could just get anything she wanted, she completely emptied out her chi for her entire life. There's nothing left there. So how can that person get exactly what they want when they have no physical basis for that to happen? So she honestly thought that some magic could happen, bing, and that suddenly all that damage that she'd done for all those years, plus the botched surgery, was going to somehow disappear. So then maybe there's some practitioners that have that power to do that. But I don't think any of us really fall in that category yet. Maybe in a few years, okay?
Not me.
But we can't make up for everything that that a person has done with their lives. We just can't. And like I say, there are some practitioners who can do things like that, but it's really interesting. Some of my teachers have been practitioners who can do things like that. But then when we really look at the patient, what happens to their lives, even if they do get that thing magically handed to them, what I've seen time and time again is that they get it, and the minute that they get what that thing is, even if it's literally a miracle that it's happened, the instant they have it, they stop valuing it. And they go right into the same patterns again that created the problem to begin with. So it's actually working with those miracle working practitioners helped to give me the true understanding of the actual magic of what we're doing in the way we're practicing our medicine. Because we don't give the person a miracle. What we do is we help them to rebuild the foundation of their life so that they can continue to develop and that they can continue to grow in the healthiest ways possible, okay? Because even if that person gets a miracle, if they keep doing the same old thing that they did before, they recreate the disease again.
Yeah.
I've seen it happen again and again and again and again, right? So even that person who we were talking about, who's so empty, so she came to see me one time. She felt so much better, one treatment, okay? So much better. What did she do? She ran out that night number one, we talked about this last time, right? First, in the first place, she didn't know what to do with all the energy when she got the energy. So she stood in front of my clinic for 2 hours, engaging with total strangers and giving them hands-on healing. She gave all the energy away before she ever left the office, right? Second thing she did, because she felt so good, she went and played the pickleball. Okay, pickleball is the new like #1 and public enemy #1 in terms of sports injuries. Okay, people playing pickleball all over the place, they're getting injured all over the place. She went and played pickleball, she hurt herself. Like that. So we have to be careful. We have to teach our patients to be very, very careful when they get the energy, when they get the healing, to treat it delicately, treat it like it's a baby, like a newborn baby. Okay, you have to let it get strong. You have to let it get strong, and it'll happen. It happens pretty quickly, but they need to take care of it initially. It's very, very important. Okay, all right. Giving someone a miracle is like them winning the lottery. Usually within a couple of years, they're broke again. Yes, that's very true, Jim. That happens, and it doesn't take a couple of years. That's a very, very optimistic view. It usually happens much, much, much faster than that. Yeah. Yeah, so we have to help the person to restructure what their lives are about. It's like my favorite acupuncturist joke, right? There's some really good jokes about the acupuncturist, right? My favorite one is the simplest one. It's how many acupuncturists does it take to change a light bulb? You guys know this joke? Okay. How many acupuncturists does it take to change a light bulb? The answer is only one, but you have to first rewire the entire building. It's a very true, a very profound joke. So on that note, let's take a 5-minute break and we'll come back and we'll get into this. Okay. Thank you for this interaction. I think it's very good for all of us to hear this. Okay.
Yeah, we need to learn one of the getting to sharpen our diagnosis. 谢谢老师。
Okay. See you in 5.